As everyone expected, the second version of Nano Banana has finally been released. Some people call it Nano Banana 2, while others call it Nano Banana Pro. Nano Banana Pro can generate more complex images and maintain better consistency during reference generation. In this video, we will provide you with a comprehensive review. At the same time, we will address several questions that everyone is concerned about. The first is how to use Nano Banana Pro, and the second is what exactly the Nano Banana Pro model is capable of doing. If we talk about the biggest difference between Nano Banana Pro and the previous version, it is that it is not free. Previously, we were accustomed to using Nano Banana within Google's AI Studio. However, you will find that when we select the model list on the right, we can indeed see this version, called Nano Banana Pro. But when we select it, please note it will require you to enter an API key. This means it must be used for a fee. However, we can still see a lot of information in the configuration options on the right. For example, you will notice that it has 1K, 2K, and 4K resolutions, meaning we can generate images at different resolutions when using the new version of Nano Banana. So, where can we use Nano Banana for free? That is within Google's Gemini, but it has usage limits. Another way to use it is on some paid platforms that offer Nano Banana Pro API access. For example, the relatively familiar RunningHub. I have also built a Nano Banana workflow on RunningHub. You can access this platform through RunningHub. In the ComfyUI field, RunningHub is a great online working platform. This is because whenever a new model or new technology appears, it follows up immediately. You can register for RunningHub through the invitation link in the video description section. This way, you can receive 1,000 free points. Additionally, logging into RunningHub every day will also give you 100 points, allowing you to try out your own workflows. Okay, now let's look at this workflow. Since it uses an API access method, it is relatively simple to use. Here we will use a specific node, and there is a tag here called new, which indicates that this is the new model. Additionally, we can find some clues in the configuration options below, which indicate that it is the new Nano Banana Pro model. For instance, here we can also select 1K, 2K, or 4K Nextty. We will perform a simple test for everyone. I will adjust its resolution to 16:9, and let's generate a relatively complex image. This image is of an airplane engine, and we want it to have Chinese and English text labels. Now, let's run it directly. Look, it is excellent. Including the Chinese and English labels, these are very accurate. Therefore, this is how this node is used for text-to-image generation. For image-to-image generation, we have two options. The first option is to connect all the reference images to the image's input. Of course, if we use this method, we must batch them all, but this makes precise control relatively difficult. Often, when using Nano Banana, it is for precise control over image generation. That is why we often use descriptions like image 1, image 2, image 3. However, if you place them in a batch, the order might be disrupted, and your precise control may be affected. The other method is to connect all the images individually to our image input slots. It currently provides 9 input slots for reference images. In fact, many people have tested it, and around 15 images can still produce relatively good results. However, we do not recommend providing that many. Generally, the effect is excellent with about 5 images. If you provide more than 5 images, sometimes we need to draw cards to achieve our desired result. Now I've used 6 images. Take a look. There are 6 beautiful women. My prompt is a group photo of 6 beautiful women during a spring outing. The aspect ratio of the generated image is 9:16 and the resolution is 2K. Let's look at the generated result. The characteristics of each person were quite well replicated, but you should note that when there are many images, the facial features are not replicated particularly accurately. If you observe the appearance of each person in the generated image, there is still some gap compared to the characters in our reference images. This is why we do not recommend providing too many reference images. You should consider using 5 images or fewer, which will yield a better result. Of course, something everyone might be very concerned about is the pricing. We can take a look. The pricing for Nano Banana Pro is as follows. If you generate a 1K image, the charge is 0.25 yuan per time. You should note this is RMB. So the cost is quite low. If you generate a 4K image, the price doubles. Next, let's show you what kind of images Nano Banana can generate. Please note, The examples I have selected for you are highly representative examples that I found on internet platforms. These contents are not my original creations. I must reiterate this point. Now, let's look at the first example. This is a standard text-to-image generation. We just tested this. We generated an image of an airplane engine, and it has English and Chinese labels. Look, the effect is excellent. Through this example, we find that Nano Banana Pro can render Chinese text very well. Now let's look at the second example. The second example is actually testing its reasoning ability. What kind of image do we want it to generate? This is a physical concept diagram used to represent effects such as refraction and scattering. We wanted to display this effect in the style of Newton's scattering experiment. Furthermore, we required to accurately write the formula on top. Let's look at the final generated result. Isn't it astonishing? A prism refracts light, creating a spectral splitting effect, and on each one we have the relevant physics formulas. So you will find that it is not just drawing, it is drawing logically reasonably. Therefore, when you are creating materials or making PPTs, the capabilities of this model become very prominent. Let's look at this next one. To be precise, this is an image-to-image task, but it is not reference generation. Reference generation, of course, is when we provide an image and ask it to generate another one based on the style or characters of that image. This is actually about giving it some information and letting it derive certain conclusions. Let's look at this image. This image is actually a math problem, specifically a geometry problem. We wanted to solve this problem and draw the solution on scratch paper. Let's look at the generated result. It is astonishing. Is this accurate? I haven't checked the details, but if we look at these diagrams, they perfectly correspond to the ones in the problem. So at the very least, it looks right. And this result is already very surprising to us. The next example is an instance of reference generation. Moreover, we often use this example to test the model's generation capability. What is this example? It is converting an anime character into a real person. Even if we use some open source models, such as QWImageEdit, we can achieve similar results. But the final result from those often feels slightly lacking. Let's look at this model. It genuinely can convert an anime character into a completely realistic person. This is our reference image, and this is the real person we generated. For this generated image, we cannot see any trace of 3D rendering or other animation shadows. It is truly a cinematic photorealistic image. Alright, next, let's do a more extreme test. This is also something I found online. Please note, this prompt is in Chinese. The content of the prompt is not important. Just look at its length. There are many details and there are precise descriptions. For example, specifying where text should be located in the image, what kind of text, and there are very detailed definitions regarding font size, font color, and line thickness. Now let's look at the generated image. This image is actually a common physics phenomenon. Horizontal projectile motion. We throw a small ball horizontally, and due to the influence of gravity, we get a parabolic trajectory. Look, almost every element has been fully presented according to our prompt. Now let's look at another one. This one is very interesting. Let's look at the result first. When we see this result, you don't even need the prompt to know what the subject is about. The overall prompt reflects a scene from an animated movie. This scene is the familiar Havoc in Heaven. However, the character has changed from the traditional Sunday Wukong Monkey King to Jerry from Tom and Jerry the Mouse, but you will find that the fusion of these characters is excellent. The entire appearance of Sunday Wukong, including his clothing, has been fully retained. But Jerry's image is perfectly merged with the Sunday Wukong attire. At the same time, I also tried generating this using the same prompt in Jemongang. You will find that Jemongang is almost unable to fully express this theme according to our prompt. Now let's look at this one. This is another example of reference generation. Here are two products. Both products are related to aromatherapy. Their name is To Summer, and each product has very clear Chinese and English text labels on it. Now we use this prompt to generate a design poster. In the prompt, I specified the environment where the products are placed and the layout of the text. Let's look at the final result. First, notice that the appearance of the products and the text have essentially been preserved, and I estimate that the overall effect is completely consistent. Then, observe the degree of matching between the result and our prompt. you will find that it perfectly follows the settings specified in our prompt, generating the product poster image we desired. Let's look at the next example. This example was not considered very successful in generation. We actually wanted to generate an anime character in a real-world scene. If we look at the overall result, the generation is still good. However, it produced a completely symmetrical effect. I think I needed to draw another card, run the generation, but I didn't. This is because I want everyone to see that it also has a probability of failure. Don't assume it will succeed every time. The next example is also very interesting. Take a look. Here is an image. This image is of a beautiful woman holding a bouquet of flowers with both hands. Now I want to switch the perspective. I switched the perspective to POV, which is the first-person perspective. Take a look at the generated first-person perspective. You will find it is also excellent. Because, from the person's point of view, looking forward, they see the bouquet they are holding in their hands. The following example is a completely Eastern scene. I also wrote this using a Chinese prompt. The prompt describes a crowded Beijing subway car, where all the passengers are mythological characters. Furthermore, there is scrolling text at the connection point of the carriage. This text reads, "Attention passengers heading to the Western Heaven for scriptures. The next stop is Gaolao Swang." There is also a slogan posted on the car window such as "Magic spells are prohibited inside the car." Take a look. I think the depiction of the characters is fine. At first glance, you know exactly which Chinese mythological figures they are. Now let's look at the sign at the connection point. It is completely consistent with the description in our prompt. However, we did not see the slogan prohibiting the use of magic spells. Finally, let's look at an example of reference generation. Take a look. Here is a floor plan of a house. Now, I wanted to generate a photorealistic 3D rendered image. You can compare it with the floor plan. You will find that the degree of restoration to the reference image is very high. Furthermore, it has successfully showcased the photorealistic effect and the style of the interior decoration. This kind of result was not particularly ideal when I tested many other models previously. Through these examples, we mainly showed you some of the different generation capabilities of Nano Banana Pro. The examples we used might be considered unconventional. They differ from the typical text-to-image and image-to-image test cases. This is because we wanted everyone to see what makes this model different. What are you waiting for? Go and try it yourself. Follow me to become someone who understands AI.